March 1974. 29 years had passed since the end of World War II. Peace and prosperity had spread everywhere. But on Lubang Island in the Philippines, amidst the dense and terrifying jungle, a soldier was still fighting. His uniform was torn in places, but his rifle and sword still shone. This man was none other than an intelligence officer in the Japanese Imperial Army. 29 years after the end of World War II, he was still fighting alone against American forces. Imagine, when the whole world was celebrating peace, new cities were being built, and people had forgotten old wars. This man was alone fighting a war that had been over for years. His name was Hiro Onoda, for whom time had stopped in 1944. He believed that the enemy was still lurking in ambush, and that he would be captured as soon as he emerged from his forest. But the question arises, how could anyone be so crazy music? How could a man survive alone, cut off from the world, without supplies or help, for 29 years? For the world, World War II ended in 1945. But in reality, it ended only in 1974, because technically, the war continues until the last soldier surrenders. Is it just the death of one soldier? Was it duty or his stubbornness that made him the last prisoner of war of World War II? Once again, congratulations. Viewers, Hiro Onoda was born in a small village in Japan in 1922. But this wasn't the Japan we know today for robots and technology. It was a Japan that dreamed of conquering the world. In the Japan of that time, when a child took his first step, he was taught not to walk but to die for his father. Onoda's childhood was spent not in play, but under strict discipline. An environment where the word surrender didn't even exist in the dictionary. From childhood, he was taught that death was better than surrendering after losing a war. Onoda was also a product of this militarized environment. He was taught from childhood that loyalty meant treating every command of his commander as God's command. But what command compelled Onoda to fight World War II alone for 29 years? In 1944, World War II was at its peak, and Japan was facing the United States and its allies. The situation had become dire, and Japan was facing a crushing defeat. But the Japanese High Command made one last move. To teach the Allied forces a lesson, they decided to create guerrilla soldiers who could silently wreak havoc in enemy territory. Hiro Onoda was one of the few selected soldiers sent to the Nakano Military School for guerrilla training. This was no ordinary military school. Here, Onoda received extensive training in intelligence, espionage, and stealth attacks. He was taught how to survive alone in the jungle, set enemy supplies on fire, and exhaust an entire army through guerrilla warfare. But most important was the special instruction his commander gave him. After completing the training, the commander looked Onoda in the eyes and said, "Under no circumstances should you surrender. Remember, you are not even allowed to commit suicide. Whether it takes 3 or 5 years, we'll be back. But until then, you must not let the enemy rest in peace." These words ignited a fire within Onoda that would not die down for the next 29 years. Music for this mission, Onoda was sent to Lubang Island in the Philippines. This small island is completely covered in dense jungle. From a military perspective, it was crucial for Japan because it supplied supplies to the United States and its allies. Hiro Onoda, now an intelligence officer, had a tough assignment: disrupt and destroy, which meant stealthily attacking enemy supply lines, keeping an eye on them, and turning every inch of the jungle into hell for the enemy. He had to remain on this mission until the Japanese Imperial Army came to retrieve him. Music, whether it took 5 or 10 years. It had only been a year since Onoda left Lubang Island when, in August 1945, music, the world witnessed the first use of nuclear weapons. The United States dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, shocking the entire world. After this attack, Japan officially surrendered, marking the turning point that ended World War II. The war was over, but there was no one to inform Hiro Onoda on Lubang Island in the Philippines. He was still lying in wait there with his 3 companions, Akatsu, Shimada, and Kozuka. Allied forces, aware of the guerrillas on the island, had distributed millions of leaflets declaring, "Japan has surrendered. The war is over. come down from the mountains. But when Onoda read these leaflets, he became suspicious. Perhaps this was a ploy to trap him and his companions, because he had been taught that the enemy is very cunning. They will try to mislead you by spreading false news. Only one thing remained in Oda's mind. My fight will continue until my commander returns. From here began a test of time that broke the limits of human endurance. For the next several years, Onoda and his companions wandered the island like ghosts. They had no shelter or food. Only the dense trees and wet ground of the jungle were their home. To survive, they subsisted on unripe bananas, coconuts, and occasionally rice stolen from local farms. When hunger became unbearable, they would venture out into the forest, hunt a cow, dry its meat in the sun, and survive for months. But it wasn't just survival. Onoda repeatedly attacked the local police and villagers, mistaking them for enemies. This lonely battle was costly. His comrades were gradually losing courage. But because Onoda was their superior, they were forced to obey him. Gradually, one by one, Onoda's comrades deserted him. In 1949, Akatsu, he surrendered. In 1954, Shimada was killed in a police encounter. And finally, in 1972, after the death of his last companion, Kozuka Hiro Onoda was left completely alone on the island. Lubang Island is sparsely populated, but the locals knew that Japanese guerrillas were hiding in the island's jungles. Onoda considered them enemy allies and attacked them in the dark of night. Over the course of 29 years, Onoda and his comrades killed approximately more than 30 locals and injured over 100. The island police tried to capture him several times, but Onoda's guerrilla training was so rigorous that he would repeatedly disappear. The Philippine government also tried, repeatedly, to convince him that the war was over. They even dropped newspapers from the sky. Letters and photographs from Onoda's family were also thrown, and even his brother's voice was played over the loudspeaker. But Onoda believed this was all a conspiracy by the enemy. He had become quite famous, but he was nowhere to be seen. Some believed he was dead, while others said his spirit still haunted the island. Surprisingly, where military units and search missions were searching for him, while they failed to find him, a 24-year-old Japanese man, Norio Su, accomplished this feat without firing a single shot. Norio was not a soldier, but simply an adventurer. He had only 3 goals in life. First, to see the panda. Second, to see the Yeti. And third, to find Hiro Onoda. He set out to search for him in the Lubang jungle and found him in just 4 days. On February 20th, 1974, Norio Su and Hiro Onoda faced off. At first, Onoda tried to fire, but Suzuki shouted his name in Japanese and said, "Oda, Emperor Sui and the people of Japan are concerned for you." Suzuki told him that Japan had now become a powerful force. But Onoda was adamant. "I will only believe it when my commanding officer comes here and gives me this order." Suzuki had understood that this war would end not with weapons, but with just one order. The problem now was that the commander who had ordered Onoda to wage guerrilla warfare 29 years earlier, after World War II, was no longer known. After several days, the Japanese government tracked down the officer, who was now making a living selling books. This was Major Taniguchi, the same officer who had given Onoda the order. The order was given, after much planning. A special mission was planned, in which Major Taniguchi was sent to Lubang Island to break the chains he had tied 29 years earlier. When Onoda saw his former commander, he stood at attention and saluted. At this moment, his commander pulled out a piece of paper and read aloud the words written on it, which translated, "Officer Onoda, Japan has been defeated. Your mission is over. Surrender your sword and rifle to the enemy." Onoda, who had entered Lubang at the age of 22, was now 52 years old. He had given his youth, his friends, and the best years of his life with a loyalty that, in the eyes of the world, was nothing short of madness. When Onoda returned to Japan, he had become a national hero. He repeatedly expressed grief over the deaths of the 30 people he had killed, believing them to be enemies. But he never found the Japan he had left behind 29 years earlier. Technology and Western culture now reigned there. He couldn't adjust to this new environment and left Japan for Brazil the following year. In 1996, Onoda returned to the same island in the Philippines where he had spent his youth. He spoke to the local people. He gave numerous interviews about this journey and spoke openly in his book. But his story became famous worldwide when hero Onoda died of heart failure in Tokyo on January 16, 2014, at the age of 91. Japan suffered a devastating defeat in World War II. But hero Onoda was perhaps the only soldier who won the war but lost the battle of time. I hope you like and share this video. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next great video.